Welcome to another episode of Movie Reviews. Summary of the movie Different Strokes. This movie tells the story of four married women who navigate through the challenges of keeping their relationships fresh and fulfilling while facing largely different circumstances. The first revolves around Lydia, who is married to Alex Cole. Lydia invited her friends over to celebrate the new car her husband bought for her. Duni and Onyinye unconsciously start comparing the sweet life Lydia is living to their own marriages, individually in their thoughts. Duni met her husband during NYSC. One thing led to another and she got pregnant. Due to frequent illness, Duni and her husband Olayemi struck a deal that she would put her career on hold to take care of the home and their kids while he handles the financial part. However, a lot of things changed when Olayemi lost his job. Although Olayemi now has a different job, he has just become entirely different, blaming Duni for not being supportive as he bears the financial weight alone. Onyinye's husband, Khalid, on the other hand, is never at home or even in town. He became increasingly distant because of the workload that came with his promotion. Onyinye complains that he is never available with her. Lydia, Duni, and Onyinye are seated together when Manila walked in. She was limping. Apparently, she had gotten injured while working out at the gym. Manila is the fourth married woman. She used to be the very apple of her husband's eyes. He loved and adored her. All this changed when she got pregnant with their son. Manila lost her agility, started spitting around, and gained a lot of weight, pound upon pound upon pound upon pound. Her husband, Tade, lost interest in her because she had lost her pre-pregnancy physique. Her body was simply no longer the way it used to be. And being that Manila had their son through a cesarean session, her plans to recover quickly and hit the gym could not work as her body needed time to heal. Tade sought solace in infidelity, which bothered Manila. Now, having heard about some of the challenges of these women, it pops an unavoidable question. Will these resilient women defy the norms and seek to carve out their destinies, or will they succumb to the weight of their challenges? Let's go on and find out. Back to where these women are seated, they all try to console Manila. Saddened by Manila's situation, Onyinye says in Igbo, "Onye nwere ukwu na-achọ selense. Onye nwekwanu selense, e no get leg," which means it is different strokes for different folks. Manila is so pained and tells her friends that Tade has not touched her in 10 whole months. She complains that she feels abandoned, and Tade rains emotional abuses on her at every slight opportunity he gets. Lydia tells her she understands, but Manila vehemently refused, reminding Lydia that her husband loves her, showers her with gifts, and takes her on trips. Well, that's what they all think. But in reality, Lydia has her own share of marital battle, in capital letters. Lydia endures mockery from her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Without prior notice, they come visiting, and Lydia's mother-in-law, who is irritated by Lydia, is surprised to hear that the brand new car she saw parked outside belongs to Lydia and not to Alex, her son. She asks her why she decided to get a new car for herself, knowing that her land is dry, as a way of reminding Lydia about her battles with infertility. Her mother-in-law referred to her as someone walking on a desert. Her sister-in-law, Mosun, adds that Lydia is celebrating the gift of a car when others are celebrating the gift of children. Lydia's husband Alex is seen getting into a hotel room with his side chick, and coincidentally, Onyinye, who got herself a sugar boy to satisfy her needs in her husband's lengthy and elongated absence, was also getting a room and recognized Alex from behind. Onyinye let her snuck out of her hotel room to find Alex, and she heard moanings which apparently tickled her fantasy, calling him a gentleman at day and quite a horse at night. Back at Manila's house, Tadeshe returned home to Manila in a very drunken state. He yells at her and warns her never to question him, as she tries to inquire why he returned drunk. Tired and frustrated, she asks to go back to what she was doing so that he can find more clean trousers to put his used condom in the next day. Tade pulled her and slept with her even while she complained about the injury on her leg. In Duni's home, her husband, Olayemi, responds to her aggressively when she mentioned that his food was ready. They get into an argument and he calls her stupid. At this point, he got physically abusive with her and beat her to a pulp. Back in Lydia's home, her mother-in-law called her barren indirectly in Alex's presence and prayed for their separation. Lydia complained that Alex said nothing and he said his mother was just being a mother. He also told Lydia to invest her energy in giving people a reason not to point fingers at her instead of crying about it, after which he walked out. Next, Duni called her to come to her house urgently. Lydia picked Duni and her daughters up and took them to another apartment where they could stay as long as they wanted. Manila returned home from the hospital where her son was diagnosed with a lower respiratory tract infection. Tade was furious that she went out with his car. She tried to explain that she had been calling him severally, but he wasn't taking his calls. Tade told her never to touch the keys and walks out, showing no concern whatsoever for the state of his son's health. Meanwhile, in the short time that Duni has been away, Olayemi has had 3 business disappointments, and due to inconsistencies in his records, he was sacked and asked to pay back the sum of 9 million naira. In devastation, Olayemi meets with his Maraj for solution. His Maraj goes on to tell him that as a fish needs water to thrive and survive, in the same way his stars brought his wife Duni to him as his water, and he has a command to love her, and once he fails at doing that, he will turn that water to fire, and fire will destroy. Hence why he has been experiencing all the disappointments at work. With this, Olayemi starts searching for ways to reach his wife. Lydia throws a party at her house. During the party, Manila gets a call that her son's health state has worsened and she leaves in a hurry. Unable to get her son to the hospital on time, and because Tade was not taking his calls, sadly, they lost their son. Lydia works on making peace with her husband over a conversation in their living room for a misunderstanding they had initiated by Alex's mother during the party the previous day. While in the kitchen, Lydia gets the sad news about Manila's son's death. Lydia, Onyinye, and Duni are seen at Manila's house consoling her. Almost immediately, her husband walks in and selfishly starts blaming her for killing their son and verbally abusing her. Manila's friends try to calm him down, but he went on to call her foolish, useless, and unworthy of motherhood. Funnily enough, I bet Tade was not sad he lost his only child. He was only pained that without a son, he cannot become the next king in his village, which is part of their custom, considering that he had bragged uncontrollably about it to every and anyone who cared to listen. At Duni's new home, we see her husband pleading with her to come back, but she refused that she has tasted freedom and is never going back to chains. Next, we see Manila in a very sad state as she just found out that she is pregnant. Duni, who is with her, tells her not to cry because God is definitely consoling her with this child. Manila tells Duni that she doesn't want anything to do with Tade and that the child is hers and hers alone. Next, we see Tade in a hotel room, the same Tade who should be mourning the loss of his son, trying to convince his side chick to have a child for him. But she refused, saying that she's not ready to lose her body, which cost her a lot to get and even more to maintain. Lydia, who just found out she has gonorrhea, meets up with Duni and laments about Alex being ungrateful for everything she has endured and done for him. She explains in details everything she has to endure with Alex's mom and sister, and the way he chooses to pay her back is by giving her a sexually transmitted disease. Lydia explained to Duni that she noticed changes in Alex's attitude after the anniversary party, which they held. She complains that Alex is always having business meetings, and when she reaches out to the office, they say he doesn't show up, or if he does, he shows up late and leaves in no time. Earlier on, while Duni was waiting for Lydia to return, she overheard the security man and the driver having a conversation in which the driver mentioned that his Oga Alex didn't actually travel, that he's actually in a hotel with one of his madam's friend. So Duni simply tells Lydia about it and they decide to go to the hotel. With heads up from the driver, they bump into Alex and Onyinye. Duni is so upset she gets into a fight with Onyinye. And in the bid to separate them, Manila, who is pregnant, falls on her belly and goes unconscious. Lydia and Duni rush Manila to the hospital. The doctor explains that they are trying their very best to curtail the contractions that she is having. She also explained that they would need to carry out a CS on her to remove the fetus, that they would then have to incubate till it is mature. But they cannot proceed with that if the father of the child hasn't signed a consent form. They try to plead with the doctor that they would sign the consent form, but she says she needs to stick to the policy to avoid lawsuits and other actions. Left with no choice, Lydia and Duni reach out to Manila's husband. On reaching the hospital, he is shocked to find out that Manila was even pregnant in the first place. He apologizes to his wife, who is in gross pain, and signs a consent form. Onyinye, who foolishly thought she had won a jackpot with Alex Cole on her side, went on to end her relationship with her husband. Next, we see Lydia in her closet reminiscing on a conversation she had with her father's lawyer several years ago. At that time, she was about getting married to Alex and wanted to convert her inheritance into a joint ownership with her husband. The kind man suggested that she leave her property the way they are. Lydia packs her things and leaves the house. Right outside, she calls the family lawyer to thank him for stopping her when she tried to change the property title years ago. She told him she would have been in deep regrets if she didn't listen to him then. She also told him she wants to put her house up for sale. Then Alex meets with Onyinye in her hotel room where he talks about being suspended from work by the board, which Lydia is the chairman, till all investigations are concluded concerning the charges against him, abandonment of duties, neglect, and soiling the company's public image, amongst many others. Onyinye is scared that her plans may be failing. At the hospital, Lydia, Duni, and Malina's husband are seen in the hallway, pacing restlessly while the doctors carry out the operation on Malina. Soon after, the doctor comes out and they inquire to know how Manila and the baby are faring. Unfortunately, and it is indeed very sad, unfortunately both the mother and the baby were lost. And that was how Manila died. Lydia and Duni wept and wailed in devastation. Tade stood in shock to his bones. I believe both because he had lost his wife and lost his opportunity to be king as well. Meanwhile, Alex is relieved of his COO duties at the company and all benefits attached to the office. When he informed Onyinye about this, and after she realized that none of the cars or houses belonged to him, she was furious, and the realization hit her that her jackpot has bounced back and is totally empty. In the final scene, Lydia is seen back in charge at her company, and she asks Duni, who was with her, to be her executive assistant. Lastly, Lydia convinced her to give her marriage, which she had earlier decided not to go back to, another chance. And after Olayemi's heartfelt plea, she agrees to give him a second chance.